I know both of us are really big fans of the Hoop Collective podcast, and you had sent in the group text like I really like what Tim Bontemps said of the type of archetype, the type of player, to pair next to Cade Cunningham, and he talked about if he could make a trade that he would love for the Pistons is Kyrie Irving. Now, I'm not going to simply just focus on Kyrie Irving. Like when you think about the type of player that he is, do you think that's the type of archetype that Trajan and the Pistons want to pair next to Cade for the next, 4 to 6 years?
Yeah, I think that's certainly kind of within the wheelhouse. Like either, like if you can get another like dynamic scoring option, whether that be from the guard position or the wing, I think that's just something that would just take a lot of pressure off of Cade's shoulder. And I think the reason why the Kyrie, example is just so easy to envision is because it is a plug and play concept we have seen work twice now with LeBron and with Luka, where you put, like you take that dynamic, like offensive talent like a Cade is and put him alongside a Kyrie Irving. You watch them go to work. Detroit clearly has more than good enough of a defense to put alongside those guys. And perhaps what makes that more dangerous than even like what Dallas was is that Cade certainly wouldn't be someone you'd have to hide on the defensive side of the ball. Really, the only guy you'd have to like quote unquote worry about is Kyrie. And even then, when he's at his peak, like he certainly is better than people give him credit for. It's at least, with stealing the ball and things like that. Now, there would be the questions because obviously he's coming off of a torn ACL. He is climbing up there in age. You do have to look at contract, and that's why you talk about he is the perfect archetype. He might not necessarily be the perfect example as far as like the guy to actually go get in practice. But certainly like when you're talking about like, hey, who should the Pistons go get? That makes more sense to me than like a Jaren Jackson Jr. does at this point. Because as great as like a Jaren like a Triple J is, those skill sets to me seem more redundant with what Detroit already excels in, which sure you could say, oh, just go double down on what you're already dominant at. And like, I understand that premise. But at the same time, when you look at what this team struggles with, like this is a consistent issue that goes beyond this year. Even when they did have Malik Beasley, this is a team like I went back and looked. I asked JB about their half court offense last March going into the postseason. Like this isn't a new conversation in that regard. I think right now they're 19th in half court offense in the NBA as far as that goes. And, even though like the pace through postseason has certainly has certainly stayed closer to the fast pace that we've seen in seasons past, it still does slow down. And when you do face teams that have elite shot makers like Houston, you see how much Detroit struggles with creating turnovers because it's like, well, when a guy like Kevin Durant can just raise the ball over the top and just make a really difficult shot, or you have a team that can offensive rebound at a high level, that makes the Pistons' ability to get into the open court a lot more difficult. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not necessarily impossible. Oklahoma City wasn't a great half court team. They just won the championship last year, but outside of Shea, they had Jalen Williams who can go and create his own bucket too. Whereas Duren, as great as he is, which by the way, if you're talking about even like today, like that Sacramento game, like it was just another example of, I can't think of a single game this year where I've seen someone that has physically imposed his will on Duren. Like it's always been the opposite. In fact, like I even tweeted this today. Like I can hardly even count on one hand the amount of guys in the NBA who can match the physicality of Jalen Duren. Like it's hard to come up with that list. And so, but even with that, you have questions about his ability to like handle the ball within traffic. There is questions about his ability to take care of the basketball sometimes with his playmaking, especially if he's higher on a team's scouting report when you're deeper into postseason play and when teams can harness more in on your weaknesses. So I definitely think when you're talking about like what's the perfect archetype, a Kyrie Irving type player, someone who can create their own shot is certainly very tantalizing. Now, like which player is that actually? I don't think that's necessarily like the Colin Sextons of the world, but like if you can get Kobe White for pretty cheap and it's someone that can stay relatively healthy, that's the only thing why maybe this year I wouldn't go with Kobe White is because he just can't stay on the court. But yeah, when I heard that idea, I was definitely intrigued by it because it just seems like exactly what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of Pistons fans when they watch Cade Cunningham, and I thought Houston was a regular season game in January, but it had a playoff atmosphere, a playoff type of vibe of what you could expect to see come playoff time.
Yep.
Then blitzing Cade, taking care of Duncan, running him off the 3-point line, tons of turnovers. Your 3-point shooting wasn't there. I think the bucket getter conversation is something that I've always welcomed. Now, Kyrie Irving, like the example, like he played with LeBron when they won a championship, played with Luca when they got to the NBA Finals.
Probably could have won a
LeBron, Luke,
championship if they were kept together longer, but that's another conversation.
that's a Nico Harrison conversation.
Yeah.
But like the archetype of like a LeBron James, a Luka Doncic, and a Cade Cunningham, what they all have in common is they're point forwards. They're
Yep.
forwards that can facilitate, and they're the hub of their team. I wasn't opposed to the idea. I think where Tim Bontemps' idea, like I understand it, and I think it makes so much sense. But there were some Pistons fans that didn't want Kyrie Irving, and I can understand it.
Yep.
Coming off an ACL injury, expensive contract. But I think the idea was right. Getting a number 2 option next to Cade Cunningham that could score 20 points on any given night. I mean, you mentioned a guy that I think is definitely gettable, Kobe White. Obviously, that is like a much lower prospect in terms of just like an athlete and a scorer like Kyrie Irving is, but like
Right.
like he's still a bucket getter. I mean, someone had mentioned Malik Monk. Like I think we saw Malik Monk tonight. Like Malik Monk can score at all 3 levels. He can play make. I think that's a bucket getter that you could have off your bench and you could have in closing lineups with Cade Cunningham. I see some people talking about AL DeSumo, which I would love a AL DeSumo.
Io DeSumo is awesome, man. That's a
Yeah,
guy I really enjoy watching play.
yeah. I mean, he can fill it up. He's having a pretty good year from 3. I think there are some options out there in terms of trying to get Cade a number 2 option, and like we see come playoff time, like if Cade is not having like 25 to 30-point outbursts, it's going to be very difficult to win a playoff series because this regular season success that they're having, it should be celebrated. They look great. But it becomes a half court game in the playoffs. And we know that, we understand that, like you can live at the paint, you can, get to the free throw line, but if you're not cashing in on your free throws, it's going to be very difficult to win basketball games. You can't be shooting, 68 to 71% in a playoff game and expecting to win games if you're not shooting it well from the outside. But that's what the trade deadline is for. And I honestly think that they will address 3-point shooting. But I was really interested in Tim Bontemps talking about like getting a bucket getter because I think that's something the Pistons do need.
So one could say the playoffs could be decided from half court.
They could.
Anyway, shameless plug.
It's okay, man. We do have your YouTube channel down in the description below for people that want to go support you and follow you.
I'm a moron, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if you live in Texas and it snows, watch out.
Hey.
Had to get that in there. If you guys follow
absolutely.
Sean, if you guys follow Sean, definitely a good time. It's always something where I'm entertained and like you just go viral at the most like random times. And I was like, oh, okay.
Whenever I least suspect it.
Yeah.